Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Does Barry Morphew strike you as the sort of man who would do the laundry? It might not seem like a particularly incisive question in terms of a potential homicide investigation, but actually it is. In recent days, the public have been able to examine some of the forensic evidence the cops have had all along in the Barry Morphew case. But is it enough for a conviction? What is the biggest, most important piece of evidence? In a previous analysis, I barely touched on the plastic dart cap. In fact, it was only referred to indirectly in a reference to laundry as part of a mosaic of domestic disturbance, and that was point number 5, broken doorways and emergency laundry. But that's because the laundry, on the face of it, doesn't seem very shocking. A small plastic cap hardly seems like smoking gun type evidence, does it? Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So, the small plastic cap doesn't seem like smoking gun type evidence, but I think it is, and I think the prosecutors thought so too. There may not be a smoking gun in the story, we'll get to that point in a moment, because the gun was a dart gun, possibly one of these. If Suzanne Morphew was subdued using not just the stealth and silence associated with a dart gun, but the chemical within to incapacitate, then the question is, how did the dart cap end up in the dryer? To be clear, this image, Exhibit 70, is an image of a dryer filled to about a quarter of its capacity with spin-dried clothing. I think another interesting question is, whose clothes are inside? Is it mostly Barry's clothing, or is it mostly Suzanne's clothing? It was only after the clothing was removed that this cap fell out and became visible. If memory serves, during one of the hearings, it was stressed that this cap fell onto the floor and could possibly have been contaminated. It's not certain whether, when this photo was taken, the cap had been retrieved off the floor and placed back inside the dryer, or if this was how they found it. In terms of protocol and provability, this may be very important for the legal contest. But in a narrative sense, I don't know how hard it is to imagine a cleanup operation after Suzanne had been killed that involved her killer removing his clothing and putting it in the washing machine, and from there inside the dryer. The killer probably felt there was no need to also remove the clothing from the dryer because all the important evidence, hairs, fibers, residues, and fluids, would have been washed away or otherwise destroyed or dealt with. Does that make sense? And if that is the case, if that is what happened, then this cap was something he overlooked. Once again, how did it get inside the dryer? Well, I think it's possible that during the execution of the crime, the killer quietly removed the packaging and placed this cap inside his pants pocket, and then in the excitement that followed, completely forgot about it. In other words, when the pants were placed inside the washing machine and from there inside the dryer, the cap was in the pants, possibly, and forgotten about, overlooked. And it wouldn't have been overlooked had the clothing been removed from the dryer the way that the authorities did when they arrived on the scene. I don't think it's ever been a question that if a seasoned hunter embarked on killing his spouse, why wouldn't he rely on his skill set as a hunter? And, exactly that question came up in the Patrick Frazee case. Would a seasoned farmer, someone who's worked a lot with animals, if he decided to do away with his fiancée, would he use his skill set as a farmer? And if you know the Patrick Frazee case, you know that to some extent he did. The Frazee crime was a very physical crime. And it also involved the substantial altering of remains. And that's something that also happens on a farm. produce is altered, the land is altered. And so in terms of a hunter, in terms of the skill set of a hunter, you could possibly have a similar scenario where you have the dressing and management of the tissues and fluids. That would be an area a hunter would also have plenty of experience with. On the other hand, the question is, would this hunter be someone who would normally do the laundry the way Chris Watts did? What do you think the answer is to that? Although I mentioned earlier that there isn't a smoking gun in this story because there's a dart gun, it's still possible there is a smoking gun and a dart gun. If there is a smoking gun, it's possibly this one. Interestingly, the evidence found besides the dart cap included all the other paraphernalia a hunter would need to know how to use it, including a how-to guide. And, had the dart cap alone been found, it doubtless would have been identified but possibly dismissed as just part of the overall clutter and messiness of the Morphew residence. It may also have seemed like really reaching to suggest the dart cap had any bearing on the crime itself, if there was a crime. But of course, the dart cap didn't appear in isolation. Its specific packaging was found. Look at Exhibit 73. Anyone know where? The box of new darts, manufactured in late 2018, was found as well, opened. And of course, the how-to guide. The cover includes all the sorts of things that might reassure a paranoid killer. Quote, minimize stress on the animal, end quote, and use it if or because, quote, you can't afford to miss, end quote. If Suzanne's killer wanted to subdue her with a chemical, this was the way to do it. Also on the packaging, the words innovative, practical, versatile. All this stuff was probably found in the garage. That's Exhibit 68, a room of death and deadly weapons. The question is, if these are scratches, did Barry get them before the dart gun was used or after? The dilemma faced when using a live round on an animal already alerted to a hunter's lethal intent is if you thereafter injure it or wing it with a live round, you might lose it when it takes flight. You might have this horrible situation of an injured animal on the loose, and that might cause the hunter all sorts of problems, even get him into trouble down the road. You could also have to deal with the aggression and unpredictable response from the animal. There might be a trail of blood and the animal crying out, or even, as I say, the animal becoming reactionary. So the dart gun means if you hit or if you miss, the injury isn't going to leave behind any evidence or stress the prey unduly. It's not going to lead to anything to lose any sleep over, really, unless, of course, your evidence trail leads to the laundry. Now, once again, as I said in the previous episode, seen alone, doing the laundry on a Sunday might not seem like a big deal. But Barry was taking out the garbage as well. There's a cracked bedroom frame. There's an alibi that turns out to be untrue, and then a replacement alibi that's fraught with all sorts of problems. More chemical smells, odd movements caught on CCTV. For example, why are you still apparently doing laundry and taking out the garbage from somewhere else now as well on that same day? It's in this sense, not just one piece of the puzzle, but all the pieces put together, that the case becomes circumstantially compelling. Still, prosecutors will have to get their story straight and tell their stories well and convincingly in order to prevent the snake from slithering away. So what do you think? Do you think the dart cap is the most important piece of evidence here? I'm not going to take it further than that. Just a reminder that I'll be doing a special live stream, episode 2, on the Van Gogh series. And that may be airing later than I've originally said. Instead of 4 or 5 Eastern Standard Time, it might be 7 or 8, even 9, but possibly around 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Remember, you've got to be a member to join that discussion, and there's a link to become a member in the description of this video. For those who are interested in the Alec Baldwin coverage, there's going to be an interesting video following this one dealing with Alec Baldwin's latest work, which is actually related to an art fraud series. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.